Hey guys, it's Emma and welcome back to my channel. Sorry if I sound different. I don't know if I do, but I have a cold, so my throat's really bothering me. So if I seem a little lack energy in the later parts of this video, that's why, but we're gonna get this thing done because today I'm showing you guys my August wrap up, even though it's already September 5th when I'm filming this, so we have to get this up. But in August I read 10 books, which is so good because I did have a reading slump in the middle of the month, so the fact that I was still able to read 10 books is amazing, so I'm so happy about that. So I'm gonna go through these. I have 7 physical, 3 library books that I do not have to show you guys. August was really the month of me trying to cut down on my TBR, so that's why there's so many physical books. So that's good, but yeah, let's just get into this. Alright, so the first book that I read in August, I actually read entirely on the first day of August, and that is Goodbye Perfect by Sarah Bernard. This is one of my library books, so I don't have it, but this is about our main character who is like a 16-year-old girl, and her best friend goes missing, and it turns out she had run away with their teacher, or like the music teacher of the school. And so it's all about our main character facing the dilemma of, do I tell the cops like where she is? She tells me she's happy, she tells me she's safe, blah blah blah. And it's sort of like her inner turmoil of like coming to terms with what is happening and stuff. It was so interesting, and the way that it was written, there would be parts that were in like normal font being like, I should probably tell, or this is kind of weird, and then in italics like inside her brain to be like, yeah, it's a really weird, and like going back and forth like that, like she was having like I said, an inner monologue, and that was so cool to see. And there was tons of like mixed media in it. There was like text messages, there was news articles. It was really, really cool, and I think the message was really important, and it wasn't done in a way that's like preachy. It was done in a way of like from the perspective of someone of that age to like who is coming to understand what is going on, and sort of like why it is or isn't okay. So yeah, that was a really amazing read that sort of caught me off guard. So that I read, like I said, in a day, and I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was just great. The second book that I read in August was Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. So it's about our main characters, Rachel and Nick, who are professors at a college in New York and just living their best life. And one day, Nick asks Rachel to go home with him to Singapore to be in, because he's going to be in his best friend's wedding. And so it's all about her going there, and he's crazy rich and she didn't know, and all that. And this also goes into like all of his extended family. Like this chapter's about his mom and his cousin from like all their perspectives. So that's sort of where the book lost me. I hated his mom, which like you're supposed to, but like I didn't want to read about her. I didn't want to read from her perspective because I didn't like her. And there is a lot of mentions of cheating in this, not in the main couple, but in another couple. And it was constantly brought up and mentioned, and I just didn't like it. It was like that it was such a big part of the story. I really just wanted to see Rachel and Nick's relationship, not the side characters, if that makes sense. Like there are more than just the 2 main characters, even though it seems like by the synopsis that it's just about Nick and Rachel. It's not. But yeah, so that's sort of it. So it would be triggering if you have come out of it like a cheating relationship or anything like that. I think this would be a hard one to read. So just putting that out there. Yeah. But I gave this a 3 or a 3.5. I can't remember. But the movie, so much better. The movie, the cheating thing is a much smaller aspect. The side characters are smaller. It more focuses on the relationship, and I appreciate that. I don't think I'll be continuing on with the rest of the series. I think it's like a 4-book series, but I will not be doing that. I will be watching the movies though, because I think that they are well done. Okay, so the next book I have is Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater. So this book is an older book. It came out in 2009, but I've heard so much about Maggie Stiefvater's Raven Cycle that I saw someone talking about Shiver, and then Keely actually, so I'll just link her down below. And I was like, I've seen this book. I have a memory of buying this book. So sure enough, I went into my sister's room and we had the book. So I got it from her room and read it. But this is a paranormal romance centering about Grace and these wolves that are like around her house. This is really weird because, okay, the majority of this book was like, okay, it's a paranormal romance. But then the last part of this book was like ramped up, and it was so much more than I anticipated. Like there was like stuff going on, like the risk element of this like jacked up. So yeah, I'm definitely going to continue on to linger because of where this book ended off. I was just like, oh, what's happening? But yeah, this, I don't even know. It was so weird. Because, like, I didn't know what to expect going into this. I was sort of just coming at it from, like, the only other paranormal romance I had read was Twilight. So, yeah, I was sort of expecting something like Twilight. And I don't know. It was weird, man. Like, the first part of it is just, like, a romance sort of thing. And then you get to the back half, and then it's just, like, plot comes out of left field. That's right, out of left field and attacks you. But yeah, I ended up giving this 3 stars just because it was sort of slow in the beginning and it wasn't like the best book I've ever read, but the end definitely hooked me to wanting to read the sequel. So next we have my monthly Cassandra Clare book, and that was City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare. So this is book 4 in the Mortal Instruments series, or the first book of the second trilogy. Yeah. So I tabbed this a lot. I'm conflicted about this because the first like half of this book is just running off the nostalgia you have for the Mortal Instruments series, and the plot is very small. Like, it's brought up in a few places, but like the plot really doesn't come into like fruition, and you don't actually see what's going on until the latter half or so. So for that, like, it wasn't the best. I really loved seeing our characters again. Like, there's a lot of pink tabs of moments where we saw our main characters again, but I just thought that this book was like pretty weak. It does a lot of also recapping the first trilogy, which for me was good because I was kind of mixing things up between the TV show and the books, but it was also like annoying because I was like, yeah, I've already read that, I know what happened. So like it was a good and bad thing. I think I ended up giving this a 3.5 star just because, like I said, the plot really wasn't a thing in this book until the last like 200 or so pages. But I am going to read City of Lost Souls in September, so I am looking forward to seeing like what actually is going to happen, because we don't really get it in this book. But yeah, obviously I'm not going to give you guys a synopsis of this book because it's the 4th book in a series. But yeah, the next book I also do not have physically, but that is Maybe This Time by Casey West. This is the Casey West newest book, which follows our main character, and I, as always, don't know her name. Our main character who works for a florist, and so she does the flower arrangements for like a bunch of different events, and we're following her, and her friend owns like a catering business, or her dad owns a catering business, and she works there. So we get her and then this guy whose dad is helping with the catering business. So this book kind of reminds me of Birthday by Meredith Russo, where in Birthday we are catching our characters at each of their birthdays. But for this book, we are catching our characters at each major event in their town. So that's when the characters are all coming together and the plot happens. So I guess is a slice of life. I don't really know what this is called, this style of writing, but yeah, I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed this because I saw it's been getting pretty mixed reviews, as in it's either like a lot of people are saying that it's like average, like nothing special, but I actually really enjoyed it and I gave it 4 stars. I thought that the romance was really cute, the friendship dynamic was really interesting, and I really liked seeing each of the events. And at the beginning of each section of the events, there was like a flower that went with it, and then they would like, she would like write about the flower or like why the flower was used for certain events, which was really interesting. I don't know, I like when authors, you know, make it like add that little touch that's just like going beyond just being like, here's the next event that happened. Like, she molded a story being like, here's the event and here's a flower that goes with it and here's why, and it was interesting. And then you find out later like that's what the main character writes in the flower shop, like on the blackboard, and it was really cool. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. That was the 4th Casey West book I've read, and it wasn't my favorite, but it was definitely up there, so highly recommend. And keeping with the romance, we're gonna go with Nights in Rodanthe by Nicholas Sparks. So this is a book following our main characters Adrian Willis and Paul Flanner, and they are in their like 50s, and they're both divorcees, you know, trying to just, you know, move on from their past relationships. And one weekend Adrian is house sitting or in sitting for a friend, and Paul comes to stay at the inn, so they start talking because he's the only guest, and a romance blooms because it's Nicholas Sparks. That's not a spoiler. But yeah, this one I gave 3 stars. I think that it's just, a lot of this book is talking about what it's like to be older and to be divorced and the growing of the kids and stuff like that. And clearly I'm 22 years old. I don't really relate to that. So I definitely feel like this is a book that caters to an elder audience, which is not a bad thing, but it just wasn't going to hold as much of a importance, or it wouldn't resonate as much with me. And there were some parts where it was just a little cringy, like the word choice and the way he would describe the like intimate moments, where I was like, you can just tell a man wrote it. And I was like, I don't know if that's just like me coming to realize after reading more romance and female written romance, but I can really tell like the way he was like talking about her like body and stuff, it was just really weird. And he was like talking about like she was not the smallest woman, and like she had curves, and like the way he was describing her just like it made me uncomfortable, and the chemistry was just weird. I'm really like, now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I didn't really like this book that much. I don't know why I gave it 3 stars. I think I just gave it 3 stars because I think it's a me thing and not like a book thing, but I don't know. And the next book is actually a library book that I still have, so yay. And I read Beneath the Sugar Sky by Shauna Maguire. This is the 3rd book in the Wayward Children series, and this follows a bunch of our characters from the 1st book, but it also introduces a new character, and that's sort of where the issue came in with me. So we're introduced to a new character named Cora in this book, and she is larger. You know, nothing wrong with that. I'm larger than whatever. It's fine. But she would constantly be thinking or saying like, ooh, this person thinks I'm fat. This person thinks I'm blah, 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 blah. Like making all these fat phobic comments about herself, or putting into someone else's mind like, you're gonna say a fat phobic thing about me, or you know, something like that. And then like later on there is like a fat phobic character, and it was just really triggering. I think that I'm like okay with myself, like I have come to terms with my body, I like my body, whatever, but like this book for some reason just got to me, and like it really made me feel icky and cringe, and it just made me really uncomfortable. I'm currently reading the fourth book now, and it does not involve this character to my belief, so I'm really happy about that. I do not want to be in this character's head again because of the things she was saying and talking about, and like her thoughts that she was having. So just a warning, if you are reading the series, that being fat phobic is going to trigger you, then just know this. I obviously am not saying that the author is fat phobic in any way, but I think that they were trying to tackle fat phobia in this book, and that I just it didn't make me feel comfortable, and I didn't enjoy my process reading this. I gave it 3 stars, but then I asterisked the 3.5. I'm still thinking about that. I don't think it's a bad book. I just know my reaction to it and my enjoyment level of the book was lower than for the other ones, which I gave a 4 star. So, and the next book I read was Roar by Cora Carmick. I won a giveaway for the sequel to this, Rage, and so I really wanted to read the first book in order to read the sequel. So this book is about our main character, Aurora, who is the princess of this kingdom, but this kingdom revolves around these people called Stormlings, or the royal family is called Stormlings, who can fight storms and take their heart, and that heart gives them power. Ever since Aurora was little, she has thought that she does not have powers, and there's no way to get powers, and so she has to remain hidden from the rest of the world so that they don't discover that she doesn't have powers. And so we start the book where she's about to be arranged to marry this other Stormling prince from another kingdom, and then Aurora runs into this storm hunter, or where she finds out that you can get powers from hunting storms. And so that's sort of where our adventure begins. So I actually annotated this. You're not really going to be able to see because it's like in the book. But I don't know if that possibly hindered my reading experience because I was reading this very critically. But hi, for one thing, this is a very romance-centered book. Like, Jennifer L. Armentrout blurbed it with, this is a unique fantasy and alluring romance, so it's romance heavy. I don't think I was in the headspace for a very romance heavy one at this time, and the world building didn't show up until like over 100 pages in, and by the end of this book, more elements of the magic were still being explained where I didn't understand the magic system at all. I thought it was just about the storm magic, and then they added something else, and I was like, wait, how is that a thing? So it wasn't really until the end of this book or into the second book that I really felt like I got a grasp of the magic system. I also felt like the romance in here was just like very heavy-handed, and like, I don't know. Our main character is very sheltered, so her reactions to things is very like immature and stuff, and I don't know. I just really thought that the premise of the story and the magic system were really interesting, but I thought the execution could have been done a little better, so I gave this a 3.5. The next book that I read was Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett, and this is a book that I've wanted to read all summer, so I was so happy to finally be able to read it. And this is about our main character, Bailey, who is a movie nerd and has been talking to a fellow film geek named Alex on an online portal, but they're using anonymous names, so she's going as Mink and he is Alex on there. And so one day she ends up moving to California to move in with their dad, which happens to be the very same town that Alex lives in. But she doesn't tell him that she's moving there. She's just gonna look for him without mentioning that she's there and just try to figure out the mystery herself. But while she's there, she ends up working at a tourist trap museum, and there's a guy there, and that's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, I thought this was just gonna be a cute YA contemporary, but no, this goes into so much more, I'm not sold on my rating of this yet. I rate it as a 4-star. It might be lower. It might be more of a 3.5. But this book has triggers for parental abandonment, gun violence, just fighting and stuff. It was, I don't know, it was a little interesting. I'm still like wrapping my head around this book because I really was in for like a, yeah, cutesy, like look how cute this cover is. Like you would think this is just a cute YA contemporary, but no. Like there's multiple mentions of gun violence in here and stuff. So I just want to say, like, get those trigger warnings out, like, because I was not prepared. So yeah, romance was cute, a little like, it was a little weird in certain sections, which I can't really talk about without being spoilery, but yeah, so that's why I'm like teeter-tottering. I read this in, I think, a day, or I read most of it. I read like this much in a day, so that's why I was engaged and stuff, so that's why I gave it a higher rating, but I'm still coming to terms with the actual content of the book, if that makes sense. And the last book that I actually read entirely on the last day was the audiobook of The Hobbit, or There and Back Again, by J.R.R. Tolkien. I have never said that I was going to read this book. I had no intentions of reading this book. I tried watching The Fellowship of the Ring once, but then my friends turned it into a drinking game and I don't remember the movie. So yeah. But this was an amazing audiobook. I don't remember which narrator it was. I'm so sorry. If I remember, I will write it on the screen. If I don't, I'm sorry. But yeah, I got the audiobook off of Libby and it was like 7 hours, but I listened to on 1.5 speed. So I got it done in like 5 with my mom when we were driving up to our house in Maine. So this was like the perfect road trip book. It got us engaged. There was singing and theatrical noises, and there was not a full cast, but there was like at least 6 narrators. So like I really loved that in an audiobook because I can tell who the characters are. I don't feel like it's someone just reading me the book being like, and then they did this, blah, 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 blah. You know, like it's a performance. So I was so surprised by how much I enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. So this, do I have to explain what The Hobbit is? This is a book that sort of reads like a fairy tale about Bilbo Baggins, who is going on this trip with a bunch of dwarves to go save this place under the mountain from a dragon, and all the different like people and kingdoms that they meet up there. It was a lot, but I was so surprised. I really didn't think I was gonna like this, but I also had my mom next to me, and my mom loves The Hobbit. Apparently she gave it 5 stars on Goodreads when she first read it, and then she, you know, reread it with me in the car. I ended up giving it 4 stars because I loved the audiobook. I just don't know why I didn't give it a 5 star. It just didn't have the, I'm saying it like I love it, so I don't know why I didn't give it a 5 star. I've been really picky with 5 stars this year, but I don't know. Maybe this is more of a 4.5. I don't know. I'm still deciding. If we've discovered anything from this video is that I can't pick a rating. I like teeter-totter on it all the time. And then I see other people's ratings and I'm like, well, maybe they're right and I'm wrong. So those are the 10 books that I read in August. I hope you guys enjoyed this rambly wrap up. I am so sorry that I'm not being more concise. I have a lot of editing to do. But if you have read any of these books and want to talk about it, please talk about it with me below. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!